Today's critter is something we have never, ever done before. The palm nut. Hey! Hey! You rapscallion. Don't! And it's gone. He ate it. It's gone. You ate it. Why? Why? Well, okay. Now hold on there before you fly away. Relax. The least you can do is be the critter of the day, because you just ate the critter of the day. Now, according to my research papers here, it appears that you are what they call an oilbird?
That's me.
Or guacharo?
Guacharo these nuts, lad.
And it appears to me that you're our world's only echolocating bird species. Intriguing. Let's dive into that. Steatornis caripensis, otherwise known as the oilbird, is one of our world's most unique avian species. Now, these guys belong to an order known as Caprimilgiformes, which includes the family they belong to, that being Steatornithidae, which happens to only include them, and an extinct genus known as Uranictibus, which includes a now extinct species of nocturnal birds from the Paleogene period. Now, in this video, we'll be diving into the lifestyle, diets, and superpowers of this beautiful avian species. Absolutely love that intro voice. Well, this nocturnal cave-dwelling bird is known for their fan-like tail and their super long, broad wings. They're also described to have a dark reddish-brownish color that is barred with black and spotted with white. They also have like this really strong hooked tip bill, kind of like, yeah, like a hook tip bill. And interestingly enough, if you ask me, they have these long bristles that kind of come off the sides of that bill that kind of look like cat whiskers. Really, if you asked me, like those kind of look like cat whiskers, you know. Now, I'm very curious, why were they named Oilbird? Why not like Dark Cave of Darkness bird, or like Cave Birdito bird, or like Cat Without a Hat, or something like that? Why Oilbird? It's actually an intriguing question you have there, Doc. Well, I have a intriguing answer. See, their name actually has a really dark origin. This species is known for being oily. Not physically oily, as they actually have relatively soft feathers, but dietarily oily. We will dive into how they are dietarily oily later in this video. And partially in due to this oiliness, they earned the name Oilbird. This was mostly in due to an old practice where indigenous Venezuelan people would capture their chicks and boil them down while alive to produce oil that was used for cooking and as a source of lamplight oil. Morbid. Now, that's actually morbid. Oof. That's a history of bad origin names. That's pretty up there. Anyways, interestingly enough, the indigenous Venezuelan people would do this thing year-round, or yearly, not really year-round. It was more like a yearly event known as the oil harvest. And during these oil harvests, they'd go up to these caves and they would like hit the nests and then grab the chicks to boil them alive. Now, interestingly enough, they actually refused to go further and deeper into the caves, and the reason being is they believed that their ancestor souls resided in the backs of the caves, so they would refuse to disrupt them. So interestingly, the birds who decided to nest deeper in the cave were safe from the oil harvests, and the birds who decided, you know, I'm gonna make my nest at the front of the cave, their children were gone. Lickety split gone. Now, I just technically mentioned one of the countries you could find the oilbird in, but let's dive more into the other countries that you can find the oilbird in. Well, these guys are native to the caves, evergreen lowlands, and montane forests of northern South America. This being the specific countries of Trinidad, Venezuela, as mentioned earlier, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and of course, Brazil. Nice little factoid here. These guys can actually live at altitudes ranging from sea level to over 3,000 meters above sea level. Okay, let's dig a little deeper. Now, before we move on to the size segment, I did want to mention something very specific. In other videos, I kept mentioning sexual dimorphism. And sexual dimorphism is when one sex of the same species presents slightly differently, is bigger, is brighter, so on and so forth, has ornamental feathers, ornamental color. You know, you get the shabla. Now, oilbirds don't have that. Any size difference or any differences at all between males and females are negligible. Big old hole. And this is mostly due to their ecological niche, their parental roles, and just the way they are. And we'll dig more into this later on in the video, but for now, I wanted to talk about how big an oilbird actually is. Now, in comparison to their relatives like the nightjars, the oilbird is actually a very, very large and bulky bird. From beak tip to tail tip, these guys can be between 40 to 49 centimeters. For our American friends out there, that's 15.7 to 19.3 inches. Furthermore, these guys sport a 95 to 105 centimeter wingspan. That's 37.4 to 41.34 inches in bald eagle. They also come in at a whopping 350 to 475 grams. And for all our USA fans out there, that's 12.3 to 16.8 ounces. Hey, another chunky boy for the charts. Now, how long do these kings and queens of bulk live for? Honest to God, I'm going to try to keep this segment short and sweet because the rest of these segments are redunculously long. So these guys are actually estimated to live anywhere between 12 to 25 years in the wild. This number is affected by a majority of factors like environmental conditions, predation, and of course human impact. Their lifespan both in the wild and captivity may be longer, but that is relatively unknown due to lifespan data being incredibly limited. Now, if you go back in time with the Dingle Doober time machine plus premium, you know, you'll see that I mentioned the fact that they had a fan-like tail and long and broad wings. And this is mostly due to their lifestyle, actually. See, being a cave-dwelling bird is all fun and games until, you know, you gotta move swiftly and get past things and hover and zip, zip, zoop, zoop around a dark cave. And so, in due to that, they evolved longer, broader wings and a fan-like tail to help with maneuvering tight corners and to help them get that zip, zap, zoop, if you get what I'm saying, if you're feeling me. Oh, this dance move. Now, I keep talking about caverns and caves and all that hoopla. Let's talk about their lifestyle. Well, oilbirds are a nocturnal bird species. During the day, they spend their time resting on cave ledges and only really leave these caves during the night in order to feed. We know you'd love to hear about what they eat, but I guess you'll have to wait for the diet section of this video. Gotta get those watch hours up. Now, while foraging, these guys can travel hundreds of kilometers away from their caves, sometimes being found up to 120 kilometers from their home caves. Now, within these home caves, these critters live in pairs, in exceptionally large colonies. Some colonies, such as the one at the Cueva de los Guacharos National Park in Venezuela, have nearly 10,000 individuals. Okay, so a species that spends its entire time in the dark. So during the day, you're in a dark, spooky cave that you share with bats, by the way. And during the night, you're outside foraging in the dark. The dark depths of the night. Okay, so we already spoke about their body plan and, you know, long, broad wings, fan-like tail, for all the zip, zap, shoop, schla. But navigating the dark can't be that simple. I mean, do these guys have a superpower that makes it easier to navigate dark? Love the way you're thinking, Duck. And yes, they do. They actually have some really quite interesting ones as well. Let's start with the most obvious, their eyes. See, oilbird retinas have the highest rod density recorded in any vertebrae. I just threw a huge word at you, so let me explain. The word rod density refers to the number of rod photoreceptor cells per unit area of a retina. This is measured in rods per square millimeter. And I just threw some more big words at you, didn't I? All in all, to simplify this, to dumb it down really down here, how densely packed these rod cells are directly influences the eye's sensitivity to light and its ability to detect movement in dim conditions. To throw some numbers at you, the average oil bird has 1 million rods per millimeter squared. Meanwhile, the average human has 150,000 rods per millimeter squared. That's a huge difference, dude. Alright, so crazy strong, super duper, superhuman eyes is how they do it? That's it? Nah, one superpower would not have been enough. There's more. See, these guys also use echolocation, being the only bird to do this on our planet. See, oilbirds can produce high-pitched clicking sounds that sit at around 2 kHz and are audible to humans. This means that the species echolocates without the need for ultrasonic hearing like our good friends the bats. Furthermore, these clicks happen at a ridiculously rapid speed, with an average oilbird being capable of as many as 250 clicks per second. I said second, by the way, not minute, I said second. Now, because I worked on this video with some heavily educated folks, I will now show you a diagram of how these clicks are created, whilst explaining to you the process. Let the teaching begin. Let's start with step number 1, inhalation. See, the upper throat muscles of the oilbird will relax, the voice box will move forward, and the vibrating membranes at the base of the voice box will remain open and still. On to step number 2, initiation. In this step, the upper throat muscles will tense, and this will pull the 2 chambers of the voice box back so that the membranes press together and begin to vibrate. Now let's move on to our last and final step, expiration. During this step, the chamber muscles will actually retract, snapping the membrane open as the voice box moves forward, back to its starting position, and this ends the vibration, and that releases 2 clicks from each chamber of the voice box. These clicks will then go off to echo on the obstacles in the oilbird's surroundings and then return as a low frequency that the oilbird is able to interpret in order to map its surroundings with greater efficiency. Now, an interesting fact for the fun fact lovers out there, each bird in the colony clicks at a slightly different frequency. Just a slight different frequency. By the way, guys, these guys are incredibly loud and noisy. I'm gonna play this for you real quick, listen. Now imagine 10,000 of those. 10,000 individuals all making that noise. I just want you to fathom that. Anyways, we just mentioned some really cool superpowers, which we know they use for navigation in the dark and in the caves, right? But like, I'm assuming they also use it for hunting, right? Which would make sense, right? And they must hunt some like super quick, agile, lucrative prey. Like it's gotta be something insane. Yes? Nope-a-doodle-doo. These guys are frugivores, which means that they only eat fruits. So all those genuinely superhero-like abilities are for them to locate fruits. Yeah, fruits. Now, remember way earlier in the video when I said these guys were dietarily oily? Well, that dietarily oiliness comes from the type of fruits that they eat. This usually consists of oil-rich fruit pulps of plants in the family Lauraceae, Araceae, and Borsarceae. Interestingly enough, this species' digestive system is actually adapted to processing these high-fat, oily fruits, which was useful when humans found them and then boiled them alive for the oil. It wasn't really useful for the birds at that moment, but it sure was for humans. You could have told me they snatched candy off of babies, and I would have been less surprised than fruits, by the way. Now, fun fact, when these guys are eating fruits, they'll just hover in front of like the tree. Sometimes they'll just hover and pluck at the fruit real quick and eat it, which is like super interesting and cool. They're also like a huge part of their ecosystem, like aiding in a lot of this seed dispersal for these trees and plants that they eat from. Well, they're trees. Now, I'm super duper curious here, right? How do they use these superhero-like abilities to find fruits? You see, I was also curious about this, and it turns out that having some of the best eyes on our planet isn't enough. See, during the nighttime, due to the dense vegetation, even this bird's ridiculously strong vision is rendered not. So they use their echolocation ability to create a three-dimensional acoustic map of their surroundings. Think Daredevil. If you can't visualize this, think Daredevil. Afterwards, they use their clicks to identify where the ripe fruits are. And this works, by the way, because the returning echoes from fruits have a distinct and different pattern in comparison to other objects like rocks, other birds, and trees. This makes it easier for them to actually detect a ripe fruit and then steer themselves towards it and then eat it. This might become my favorite bird species, guys. I'm starting to fall for this beautiful avian critter. Like, they're just absolutely amazing. Now, these guys, thankfully, this is the first time in a long time where something cool is in the least concern category. So they're not endangered at all. Now, they do face the normal, potential habitat loss and deforestation and harm from human encroachment, because we just don't like anything nice. But apart from that, are these guys like, what predates on them? I hope it's something cool, like, a dragon that eats the babies and eats the adults and uses their oily little diets to, breathe fire to fuel itself. Is it something like that? I won't even lie, a dragon-like reptilian predating on these guys would have been cool, but that's not the case. No dragons here. Sorry, donkey. See, earlier in the video, I mentioned that this species' lifespan can be affected by predation. Well, it appears that I lied. These guys actually have zero known predators. There are literally no studies or findings based off of my research that links these guys to an active predator. It's actually believed this is just due to their size, their echolocation capabilities, and their lifestyle choices, those being nesting in huge colonies, which of course allows for safety in numbers, them being nocturnal and deciding to forage throughout the night, which actually helps with avoiding dangerous diurnal predators, and them living in caves, which are not accessible by other critters whatsoever. So this of course doesn't matter though when you add humans, as the only threat to them is genuinely habitat loss, which is caused by humanity, and hunting, which is also caused by humanity. Apart from that, these guys are impervious. I am not even exaggerating. Me and Voice literally scoured the internet attempting to find any evidence of predation on these guys, and it appears that there's literally no field studies and no any sorts of like museum record of these guys being the active main course of any mammalian, reptile, bird, or invert species. Like, none. And that's insane, because this is not an apex predator. They're just literally so ecologically niche that it's like they just have zero predators apart from when humans decided to pick them off to boil them. Like, that's genuinely insane, and I kind of actually love that, Now, let's end the video like we always do. Let's talk about their family unit. Let's dive into the Oilbird family unit. Alright. Let's start with the fact that oilbirds are monogamous. This means that they pick one partner and one partner only. These partners will form a pair and then nest within the huge colonies mentioned earlier inside of caves. Now, their nests are made entirely of, and hear me out on this, regurgitated seed or fruit fiber and their own feces. They're also built about 10 to 20 meters off the ground along the ledges of these caves that they call home caves. Now, these nests can have diameters of up to 40 centimeters, and within these relatively large nests, mothers will lay 2 to 4 glossy white eggs, usually laying them 3 to 5 days apart. And as mentioned earlier in the sexual dimorphism convo, the parents share similar duties, which seems to be healthier than the average human relationship I've seen, which means that both parents will actually take turns incubating the eggs for about 32 to 35 days. After the incubation, these chicks hatch blind and naked, just blind, naked, and afraid. And to make it worse, they grow incredulously slowly. So both parents will actually have to tend for these chicks, feeding them via regurgitation until they are old enough to leave the nest, usually at around the age of 110 to 120 days old. That about wraps it up, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always,